I think what's happening right now in United States when it comes to the people who oppose President Trump and the upcoming military operations against the Islamic Republic by the United States and Israel. I think the people who have been opposing this military operation, and again, as Goldie mentioned in the show, it's better to call it a military operation instead of a war because the United States is not starting a war. They're ending a war that the Islamic Republic started 47 years ago. So, yeah, this is actually the better way to frame it, right? I think that a lot of people who are giving are trying to, they're not really trying to stop. I think, I mean, the information that we have right now is that they also have the understanding that this war, I mean, this military operation is about to start, and there is no way to stop. There's no way to stop it from happening. What the resolution that we saw some Democrats are trying to pass is virtue signaling rather than any, because they themselves know that that's not going to be a good enough. It's not going to be able to stop President Trump, but it is a good virtue signal. And I think what they're doing right now is, instead of actually trying to stop from the attack taking place, is to try to use it as a way to attack President Trump as soon as it starts, and then also from their perspective hopefully deplete President Trump's political capital like so fast, basically reduce it so fast that he would have to end it halfway without being able to successfully finish his mission. And so this is right now not just a military battle, but also an information war for political capital. Right now, anybody who thinks that removing the Islamic Republic is in the benefit, any American that thinks that removing the Islamic Republic is in the benefit for of not just Americans but the whole world, even if they're not pro Trump, it makes sense for them to at this moment try to increase President Trump's political capital from making sure that when this military operation starts, they go all the way, right? And make sure that they finish it. Because, like, again, I keep saying that a lot of people underestimate how much political capital is part of the this war, because a lot of as much as United States has military strength, and the military operations that are needed to basically do whatever they need to reduce the power of the Islamic Republic for the Iranian people to then be able to topple their regime. As much as both Israel and United States are more than capable to do all that is needed to do that, they, because they're both democracies, I mean, Israel doesn't have much of a problem when it comes to political capital, even though Israel is a democracy, because in Israel there's more alignment regarding the need to remove the Islamic Republic. In US, because it's a democracy, political capital is something that you might be short of, especially because of the Americans' memory of Iraq and Afghanistan. So it's very important that you guys, everybody here, is active online, explaining to everybody, explaining to Americans why this is completely different from Iraq and Afghanistan. Because I do want to come back to the Pahlavi, points that you brought up, right? I think for now we should just focus a little bit more on this point, and I know Gary has a point that wants to add, and then we could come back to what you mentioned about defending Princess of Pahlavi. But go on, Gary. I, oh, we don't have audio, Gary.
I just want to clarify, there was a big party in the desert given by the Shah in Shiraz. And essentially, when you flew in back in those days, when you flew into Tehran, you had to fly into Mehrabad Airport. And that was really the only major airport you could fly into. And then when you left the airport, you would drive along this straight sort of boulevard, and you would see this immense white structure called the Shahiyat. They've renamed it for the martyrs. I forget what the heck the regime has renamed it, but it's an immense structure that's in the center of this circular area, and that was celebrating, I think, the 2500th year of Iran. 2500. So that was a deliberate celebration, and I had the good fortune to be in Shiraz for part of that celebration. And it was not an aggrandizement of the Shah, it was an aggrandizement of the nation. And, coming from a country that wasn't quite 200 years old yet, it was pretty impressive, I have to tell you. So that was not a propaganda machine for the regime. It was a propaganda operation for the nation, for Persia as a whole. I hope that clarifies that.
All right. Yeah. So going back,
May I
going back
respond?
to the
May I reply to?
before I almost to say Jeffrey wanted to. I just wanted to make sure that we do one topic and then we go back to the Princess of Pahlavi and Muhammad Reza Shah points. Okay. So with regards to something that you mentioned when it comes to the rescuing the Iranian people, I don't know if I agree with that framing of it because to me, it suggests that the Iranian people are just doing nothing and they're waiting for somebody to come save them. Like, and I kind of think like, if Americans are rescuing the Iranian people are rescuing Americans. Like, this is a mutual enemy. And it's not like the Iranian people are just helpless and then doing nothing, and then the Americans are coming in and destroying their enemies, because America would not be able to remove the Islamic Republic without the participation of the Iranian people in a revolution, right? So it's like if the if the Iranian people are being rescued by America, then in that from that then America is also being rescued by the Iranian people. I mean, the Islamic Republic is the main enemy of the United States, and there is no way to do regime change because there's going to be no boots on the ground. Not at least in the scale of that, other than some special military operations, and you know other than that, we're not going to see anything like in 2003 with Saddam when it regards to the level of military boots on the ground that we had then. So the only boots on the ground would be the Iranian people. And we all know that no regime change is possible with just air power, with just air, like with just bombing different places from the sky. That is never going to lead to a regime change unless you have some boots on the ground, because you will have regime change when the Iranian people capture and hold different government institutions. That's when you know you have regime change. And if we didn't have that, like we didn't have that in Iraq, right? So that's why you needed boots on the ground. You didn't have that if you didn't have this many Iranian people coming out in the Lion and Sun Revolution, showing their ability to mobilize this in the millions and do such an incredible, like, be this brave and this eager to do regime change. That's the only thing that changed the calculation of the United States, that regime change is possible. So this is more of a cooperation than one person. This is a cooperation between Americans, Israelis, and the Iranian people, for all of them to eliminate their mutual enemy. And that's the framing that I'd rather go with. But yep, okay, thank you. Gary approves. Jeffrey, did you want to add something really quickly before, because we now have a list going? So, but yeah, go on.
I raised my hand immediately after Shah. I'm not sure if missed
Yeah,
or something.
no, no, you're on the list. We're just doing people who are responding to Shy, and then we're gonna go to you. So, but
Oh, okay.
but yeah, Jeffrey, maybe keep it really because and Shy, maybe like don't add to that, because Guy has been waiting for a long time. And Jeffrey, if you have something to say, maybe keep it really short. So Guy
Yep,
has
yep.
been waiting
So
for a long
all
time.
wars are fought three times. They're fought once before kinetic operations occurred. They're fought during kinetic operations, and then they're fought finally after kinetic operations are concluded. Armin's very correct, and it's very much the reason why Armin and Goldie and Tusi and everybody here, Brigitte Gabriel, all of us, are waging what's known as the battle of the narratives. And believe me, the Mullah regime and Islamic fundamentalists very much incorporate that in their overall strategy. If you go to the Joint Operational Environment of 2010 by the Joint Forces Command, on page 56 of the document, it talks about the battle narratives and actually cites bin Laden's interpretation of it. Today's world is the world of public opinion. Obtain the tools of public opinion, and anything you ask for can be yours. So Armin's not wrong. Right. So with regards to it was something else. It was regards to come back to me. Forgive me. Forgive me if I that's anyway.
Yep. No worries. Okay, so let's go to the guy, right? That's the list, right?
So it's sort of it's related to the discussion that we just had, but part of it is I have several things. I'll start with the thing that's related. The problem with getting the public opinion is that I I know for a fact, in that we've experienced it, we Israelis experienced it firsthand. The Iranians are have a very oiled online psyop machine, and it's enough to look on Pierce Morgan's video, the conversation with Dave Smith and Chunky Yogurt. It was very clear who was competent in that conversation, who wasn't. And like, even just, putting my biases aside, there was an unhinged person, an uneducated person, a four-star general, and two people from the relevant culture. And if you look at the comments, they're all they all look like they were written by Dave Smith. And and I'm pretty sure that's because of a Iranian Axis psyop. And I'm not sure practically what can we do to fight this machine that's working for its own survival.
What do you mean? How could we find the propaganda machine of the Islamic Republic that is fighting for its own survival?
Can I just quickly
Yeah,
say, you can start by saying Islamic Republic PSYOP, not Iranian PSYOP.
right. Yeah, sorry. Bad habits.
Yeah, that's like.
Um,
Thank you, by the way, thank you, Samantha. That's I didn't even know. Like I was because I was writing, I didn't even notice that. That's very important. Yeah, that's actually very important. Yeah, so
yeah.
don't refer to the Islamic Republic as Iran. Yeah,
Yeah, I actually
but yeah,
usually try to avoid it, so apologies.
yeah, no
Uh,
worries.
yeah, it's the
Yeah,
problem
go
is they
on.
have a lot of all of their money essentially now, I assume, goes there with bot farms and so on. And it's really really hard to create positive signal amidst all that noise.
I mean, we have been very successful at it so far. But when I say how do we, like, who's we? Is it like Iranians, Israelis, everybody, like
All of
Americans, all
us.
of us? Okay, and you're talking about like governments or like just average people like us?
No, average people like us, in terms of the fighting the public opinion war in order to create the correct conditions in America to let it continue as far as it needs to, because I'm positive that that would be Iran, the regime's, yeah, caught myself there, the regime's main like mo to get the war to stop. And again, as Israelis, we know this because this was what Hamas did. The good thing for us was that the pressure was only successful outwards, because we all know what's going on. So in terms of internal capital, generally we had internal capital to continue the war. There were other issues with hostages, but that wasn't about the legitimacy of the war itself. But in America, most of the citizens are viable to fall for the propaganda. and
Right.
and I'm not sure that whatever we do,
So,
to me seems futile in terms of fighting that
okay, so
massive messaging.
okay, so the Islamic Republic spends a lot of its resources trying to fight the information war and increase its soft power. It has a lot of access to especially many progressives inside United States. NIAC, for example, is an organization comes to mind. They're in touch with a lot of reporters. They have social media bots, and they have oil and gas money to back all of that up. But I don't know why you think that anything we do is futile, because the Iranian people have very effectively destroyed a lot of the effectiveness of a lot of their propaganda and lies that they're spreading online, like because they have been present in huge numbers everywhere that they're needed to change the narrative in their favor. I mean, so going through the list of things that you could do and have been done is, and you guys could, and by the way, not just Iranians, we have a lot of non-Iranian allies, including Israelis and Americans, that have been, supporting the Iranian people in this information war as well. And so ever since the beginning of the Lion and Sun Revolution, I mean, even before, for years, like for example, the organization and like the Islamic Republic's lobby, NIAC in Washington D.C. has already lost all of its credibility for so many years because the Iranian people did a really good job exposing what they stand for. The MEK, with so much money, for example, spent like so much money trying to increase their influence in Washington D.C., and the Iranian people with no money, with not even close to similar that amount of money, have effectively embarrassed them. And so many Americans now, so many MEK supporters now supporting Princess of Pahlavi. So there's a lot of things that people could do, like just being present on social media and commenting and responding to people's BS. That's very effective, especially on X. If you're one of the first people that you're commenting on anyone's BS, even if they have a big follower, even with a small amount of following, if you're one of the first few people, that's going to be have a that's like asymmetric warfare, because you're going to have a huge impact with a low number of followers, because usually the first few comments get seen the most, right? So that's very important. And then the protests that we have seen all across the world, and the hundreds of thousands of Iranians and their allies, the non-Iranian allies. I mean, now it's now in the millions now. I mean, if you add all of the protests around, they have been very significant. They have had a huge political influence. A lot of politicians, when they see these crowds, they get convinced that this movement is big, and that Princess of Pahlavi is the representative of the Iranian people. Those have had a huge influence. Stuff like people like Goldie are doing, they go to Piers Morgan, she's present there. Like, they go to different shows, different news outlets. They're trying to That is very significant. That has a huge impact. And there's this other thing that like many people could try to do, and they could have communities where they could go there and talk about these things, and then record the conversation about all these topics, and put out the right narrative. And as they're talking together, and basically providing responses to the BS out there, they could record it, and they could take those videos, and they could turn them into YouTube videos and put them out there. And hopefully, eventually, some of these communities could find ways to take shorter clips out of the discussions that they have in those communities. I don't know if you've seen any communities like that, but there are some out there that people go there and they record their conversations. And then hopefully, if we could like get sophisticated enough at some point to take viral short clips out of it, out of the long conversation that we have, and put those out there, those could be weaponized in our information war that we're in. What do you think, Guy? And then I know Jeffrey wants to add to that, but what do you think so far?
I think such a community would be an excellent idea. Someone should definitely put something like that together. I'm a bit pessimistic because of, again, the Israeli experience, but I'll defer to you on that. Now I have a couple other questions, but if you want to stay on this topic, I can come back to them later.
So the Israeli, you're saying because you guys, there's so many anti-Israeli views out there, and it has been difficult to push back against that globally, and it hasn't been Israelis haven't been very successful in tackling that. That's why you feel a little bit disappointed, and maybe you think it's futile. Is that what you're saying?
Something like that. Yeah, it seems like there is a power that's very coordinated, that's active, that has been active for the past 2 years, 3 years,
Let me
in order to really like create a lot of misinformation about both like both Iranians and Israelis, and it seems to have been very, very successful.
so there is there's basically a global hate that it does exist against the Jews, that you're working against that, right? That's one thing. Two, the hate is ancient. This is not something that started 2 or 3 years ago. Even before, in the past 2 years, even before October 7th, I was telling on my channel, and people thought I was exaggerating, that there is a global anti-Jewish hatred that you guys are not seeing, and it will soon, at some point, it will find an excuse, and it will come, and it will express itself in a way that many of you didn't expect. And even my Jewish friends thought that I was exaggerating. They thought that level of Jewish hatred was something that maybe maybe existed in World War II era. And I told them, and I was telling people even way before October 7th, that it's there, it's big, and at some point it will have a comeback. It's already existing, it's just waiting for its time. And then October 7th happened, and so I remember some of my Jewish friends contacted me like, Armin, okay, I didn't know this, like my American Jewish friends, like, holy hell, like what the hell is this, right? And so this is another disadvantage, because you're dealing with an ancient hatred. Okay, this is like the fact that the framework for it is out there. So that's another disadvantage that you have. Another disadvantage that you have is that the numbers, right? So we have, I don't know how many Jews around the world, but hopefully once Iran is
15
free,
million.
we could get 15 million as a whole. So I hope once Iran is free, we could add 90 million allies to our Jewish friends, and we could help with those. So we could add 90 million Zionists to that 15 million Zionists, and we could get those numbers up when it comes to defending Israel. So that's something that maybe we could help with once we're free. So Jeffrey, you wanted to add something to that?
Yeah, real quick. So all good points. Armin's initial statement that acts as a pretext to the answer to Guy's very insightful question. I mean, the left wants to co-opt and weaponize the United States humanitarian intervention in Iran with the goal of either ending the war our humanitarian intervention in Iran with the goal of ending the war the Mullah regime waged against the United States and its regional and other actors in the region since 1979, because they want to sit they're like gaming it out for the midterms and or disrupt operations mid-execution in hopes of leaving the regime intact. There's other things that we're working at track 2 substate in substate, in a substate nature that will insulate from that even having that impact. That being said, to what Guy said, I think he means how can the pro-Iranian resistance diaspora maximize their efforts to have the greatest impact in the soft power battle of the narrows element. To that, I have some observations, particularly regarding the resource disparity that exists, as Armin and Guy both outlined. So, one is to wage an asymmetric counter influence operation guerrilla media campaign. There are 3 lines of effort. One is to develop self sustaining nodes that can wage strategic information influence operations in lawfare and lesser kinetic operations, so OSINT, MASINT, geolocation of atrocities, and the rest of it. Second is pre-bunking and debunking common thematic elements that underwrite the Mullah regime and or its left-wing media proxies try to play, in this case, like moral flattening and moral equivalency, the false moral equivalency between, say, His Highness Mohammed Reza Pahlavi and the Mullah regime that tragically, supplanted him after the Red-Black Alliance took down the Shah. And finally, and this goes to, this is a more offensive focus line of effort, is link analysis and exposure to identify, isolate, and then delegitimize the very aspects or the very actors that are engaged in that soft power campaign. So when you think, I think Armin, you and Goldie did something that's very specific. You identified someone who was in the media. You identified a very specific person who was very prevalent throughout Western media. She is very much a paid asset of the Mullah regime. She goes to Tehran. Who was the person I'm thinking of? You identified her, right? So you're doing the link analysis. This is this person. This is the particular organization, operational ties that that person or this entity has
Oh,
with the Mullah regime. So
you're talking
the fact
Nargis Mohammadi?
it was a very specific one. You
You, you
said
sh-
it's like
she's in she's kept in prison by the Islamic Republic. She's in touch with the outside every time the Islamic Republic needs her to talk to journalists outside. It's her husband that goes outside.
I think
it,
he's
So,
it was
talking
a
so
it
about
was a
the makeup person
maybe it was somebody who
who
is
went to
very
Iran and was
heavily.
without hijab and walked around and
I don't
like
know.
showed I'm walking around without a hijab in Iran.
The
So
Pakistani.
example
the Pa-
example aside,
You're
the point
talking about the Pakistani lady?
maybe give me a second because I don't
Who's
want to get focused on
okay?
the minutia.
Okay,
I was
let's
just
move
using
on.
it as an
Let's move on.
example.
Yeah,
So it was a link
yeah.
analysis to determine to identify both these individuals, their organizational operational ties to the Mullah regime, and that thereby you isolate them because you illustrate to everybody that they're paid shills, right? That's part and part of that link analysis.
Okay. All right. By the way, just something. Muhammad Reza Shah, he doesn't have a middle name. Muhammad Reza is his first name. I just want to clarify. Yeah, yeah. No, that's okay. That's okay. Don't be upset. Don't need to apologize. We don't have middle names in Iran. We have a second last name though for some people. We call them pasman. Okay. Yeah. We're
I
weird like
think
that.
Shy
Oh,
had a comment on this. Hi. I
Yeah,
think
can I
hi.
I wanted to
respond to
comment.
guys? Can I respond to guys' pessimism? I agree with you, Guy. It's a drop in the ocean. Our agency, I would say. But I'll tell you a story. I have a friend who used to do Hasbara before October 7, and then on October 7 he was drafted to Miluim, to reserve, and he was telling me I was doing Hasbara to the Gazans. So the point is, being on the front line here, this is front line, okay? Here, over here, political liberty discussion, Armin Navabi's channel, Atheist Republic, Goldie Gamari, we're on the front lines, and the more we spread this, the more we're here, we spending time, we give our energy, we don't have to be violent here in any way, it's just us talking, conversation. We are countering the narrative, and I agree. I mean, it's probably bot farming. It could also be that there's a lot of people in the US that hate us. I saw the comments on Tucker's conversation with Mike Huckabee. Was that bots? Because if you look at that comment, it looks like Americans were like, I don't want to send my kids to die for Israel. That's what they were saying. Is it bots? Is it a
That's what
lot of.
bots would say as well, though.
What's
Bots are
that?
very sophisticated like that.
Maybe. But it could also be just regular Americans who side with Tucker. And that's the big, danger, because I'm not sure a lot of Americans are on our side. I mean, there's 100 million, supposedly Zionist Christians, but there's also a lot of Democrats. So it's not all homogeneous over there to support, what we're here fighting for. But so every one of us counts. So we want to be here on this channel, being very vocal, countering this point. This is why for me it's very important to take every single point the other side is saying and deconstructing it, and then spreading the word over. YouTube is right now is the world stage. X.com is the world stage. Anyway,
Guys,
I'm,
when you're adding your commentary, just try to make it short because there are other people to add to show respect for the people who might be waiting. Every
I'll
time,
I
improve.
like
just
if
want
we
to say one
react,
I'll
one
improve.
sentence for that, and then we'll continue. And I have other
okay,
questions, but put me at
okay.
the end of the queue. I agree, and that's actually why. And I sent Armin this. I created with some friends like a curated list of hundreds and hundreds of clips and articles and deep dives about both like Qatari influence, Islamic regime, and also the war in Gaza. And I think it could be a useful tool also to update, like add more things to it, and if everyone has access to it, can be a good place to find resources and list. Okay, I need this clip. Here's the like it's convenient to get it from there and just post it.
Yeah, okay. Where did you send that to me? On school?
No, on Telegram and email. In the last conversation we
Okay,
talked about.
okay, okay. I will look for it. Okay. All right.
Okay, next up we have Amy.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. And I want to make sure that Jeffrey's here too, because this is going to be touching on everything that we've talked about so far. I'm going to talk about the State of the Union address the other night. I do believe, I think Shai was talking about that we are on the front lines, and I agree with that. That us being here in this informational war is us being on the front lines and coming from each individual place on the globe, because we all get to come here, at least for me, I get to see all of these different and hear these different experiences and perspectives that I didn't get before. I'm not military, I'm just regular, American. My every day I get up and I live my life, but I watch the American news and I watch world news, and I post stuff on social media, and I know that it's only seen by a handful of people, but those people are listening. And I try to post things in a way that is easily digestible Um, Now, when I said the other night that I was really looking forward to the State of the Union address with popcorn and I just couldn't wait, um, I knew that it was going to be a big deal here in the United States because Donald is a master at media. And when I tell you that I didn't realize, because I was actually watching it on Tusie's stream. I watched the State of the Union through Tusie's stream. And so I only saw what I saw on Tusie's stream. I could hear people screaming in the background, but I didn't know what it was because I don't know if other channels were covering it, like CNN or whatever were, you know, changing camera shots and stuff like that. I just got to see the president and I got to see him talk over the screaming that was happening in the chambers. And I knew that there would be people with signs and making a ruckus and trying to get on the news and trying to create chaos and division and stuff to put on ABC, CBS, NBC. I want to know if Jeffrey also agrees with this. Here's my question. I think that more was done for American PR through the State of the Union address because of the actions of people like um, Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib and their outbursts in the chambers and the way that it was captured and the next day splashed all over social media. I want to know if Jeffrey, that's my question is Jeffrey, I feel like this was a master class in media manipulation. Am I right? That's my question.
The overaction of the radical leftists in Congress in attendance at the State of the Union address very much played a role in undermining perceptions of legitimacy amongst anybody who watched it that had any elasticity to them whatsoever. So, yeah, very much so.
All right, that's all. That was my question.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amy.
Okay, thank you. Shauna, you are up next.
Can everybody hear me? Okay,
Yes.
perfect. Okay, so one of the things I've been thinking a lot about is my birth mom is like a boomer voter, pretty old school, kind of liberal, like Democrat her whole life. And she's an accountant. She has a client that she's had, this has a purpose, for like 30 years, who's a Muslim. Now, he's actually like a really sweet human being. He has a small Halil barbecue shop, a small Halil like shop. He has two sons who run it. Like he's done a lot of really great things for my mom, really sweet, generous things for my mom. And so that's her view of Muslims. That's the only Muslim that she knows, is this like really sweet guy who brings her holy water from Mecca when he comes back and takes care of his kids, and got mad at her when she didn't tell him that her car got broken, because he's like, if you had told me, I would have bought you a new car. Like that's what she thinks a Muslim is. And so I'm trying to think of, one of the things I'm thinking about with this strategy is very much, how do we like really address the problems of Islam and also not feel like my mom's just going to feel protective of her friend, right? She doesn't really understand. She thinks the problems in Islam are to do with the poverty of the country or to do with XYZ, whatever. And so it's just something I've been thinking about a lot, is that for the boomer basic, how do we like address that? Because there are a lot of really good Muslims in this country that are just law abiding, minimalist Muslims, as you would call them, Armin. And they have integrated to the country and they're really chill. So it's something that I've been thinking about a lot.
Can I just quickly
So,
say, please show her the video I just posted in the chat?
all right. So, Shauna, I just want to clarify what you're asking. So, just let me
Okay.
go through this. And I don't think like, I think like if you have somebody that, before I clarify your question, I think if you have somebody in your life that you could talking face to face with, then just sending them clips is not a really, like, if you have the opportunity to talk to people about something, then it's better not to send them clips. It's better to actually have a face to face conversation with.
Oh,
So your mom, her perspective of Islam is what she sees through her Muslim friend, which is a really good human being, and you are saying that she's a very nice individual who happens to be a Muslim, and you're trying to see how you could educate your mom about how bad Islam is, given her experience with this person as a good Muslim. She's very protective over her, and you think that if you
And
talk to
yeah,
her about
yeah.
Islam, then she would think that her friend is being attacked and she will be protective over her, right?
Yeah, and she also will feel protective of, like, if I bring up Islam, she'll say she will also just be like, "Well, those are the exception and my friend is the rule."
Right, right. So first thing first, why do you want to change your mom's opinion?
Because well, it's not I'm using her as an example
Example.
primarily. I do
Okay.
wanna change her opinion because she's a voting person, but I'm more
Right.
thinking of her as an example of a I think that she is very middle of the road standard American. Like, she isn't really she's center left, but she's pro-capitalist. Like, I just think she's the majority of the voting bloc in America, and
And
she is a capitalist because she can do math, Samantha. Anyway, so I'm using her as an example because I actually think that's why I think that she is representative of one of the problems in this kind of propaganda war that we're gonna have. Is I think there's a lot of basic Americans who have that view of Islam. Unless they've personally had a bad experience that
and
overrides that.
and your mom knows that your views on Islam, that does she know that you have negative views? Yeah.
Yes, but she just thinks I'm like far right. She's like, "You're not a Nazi, but,
Oh,
like, you're flirting with" like, that's her view of my she loves me anyway, despite my radical politics.
right. So when it comes to family members, my usually my priority is to preserve my relationship with the people around me rather than
Right.
correcting them,
Right,
usually,
and
right?
that's my
So
focus too, which is I'm using like I said, I'm trying to just use her as an example because I
yes.
actually
Okay.
think she is representative of a lot of people's experiences. Because I actually do think that there
So
are a lot of
I
genuinely chill
so
Muslims in America.
so let me actually respond, right? So I know she's an example, so I will get to how to deal with other people who might have similar views and the way that we could talk to them about, Muslims and Islam. When it comes to people who I care regarding how they view me, I will like when it comes to because I mean, I want my mom to think that I'm a good person, right? Like it's very like it would be a high priority to me. So if my mom thinks that I'm like anti-Muslim, I would have to correct that first before I teach them anything about Islam, right? So I would basically focus like I'll talk about your mom and then I'll talk to like how I would do it. By the way, everyone's different, so I mean everybody knows so much detail about their personal lives. So my suggestion might apply to me and not to you, right? So I just have to first mention that. But if my mom thought that I have dangerous views that is not kind, because it would be devastating if my mom thinks that I'm not a kind person, right? So I will be focusing more on demonstrating to her that regardless of what my opinions on Islam are, correct or wrong, I am more than capable of being a decent human being to Muslims who are good people, right? I'm capable of demonstrating kindness. I am capable of being friends with them. And I will show them that my views on Islam is just a mere disagreement with Muslims, right? So I'm not talking about the Muslims who wish other people harm, but among Muslims who don't wish anybody harm and can actually live side by side with us. So I'm against I might have anti-Islamic views, but I'm not going to bring this up to a Muslim unless I've given a green light or unless they are eager to talk to me about it. Like in real life, I am an individual that demonstrates kindness and sympathy and gets along with people. Any person who disagrees with me on anything, not just Islam, right? So if I'm a capitalist, I could get along with a communist. If I believe in this school of thought of economics, I could get along with the person who disagrees with me. So in the same way, if I believe in If I believe Islam is harmful, I could get along with somebody who thinks Islam is the greatest thing ever. I could get along with people. So that's what I would do if somebody is my mom or my wife or my daughter or my brother or something like that, right? But in regards to if I'm genuinely trying to educate somebody about Islam, then again, I will do this and more. I will first demonstrate that this is not an anti-Muslim. It would be good if you have Muslim friends, right? Like if you have Muslim friends, that would be very easily demonstrable. That look, I'm anti-Islam, but I have Muslim friends, and it's nothing. There's nothing radical about being anti-Islamic. Even if Islam is good and I'm wrong, being anti-Islam is just disagreeing with it because I think this is what it stands for, right? And then also, then once we move past that, then the best way to demonstrate how Islam and Muslims are different, at least from my perspective, is to explain that to me, even if every single Muslim in the world was the best human being ever, okay, so forget Islam. This is what I would say. Imagine if there was a book that said, go into the land and rape and murder everyone that you can. That was the main commandment of this book. Okay. And there were, I don't know, a million people that said that this is their book. They believe in it. And this is a message from their God. And everything in this book is true. And then at the same time, they didn't do that. They didn't kill anybody, not a single one of them. Like there has a million people who claim that they love this book and they follow it, and this is the word of God. And every single person that says that, they don't kill anybody, they rape. This is hypothetical because that's not reality. Obviously, and as many Muslims do follow Islam, and this is why we have ISIS and Al Qaeda, and we have like the Islamic Republic and Taliban and all of that. But even I'm just giving an extreme situation just to make people understand this. In this hypothetical situation, if none of these, all of these 1 million people who said they believe in this book, they were all of them the best, the most decent person ever. If I come and tell you that, okay, this book is shit, this book is garbage, do you think that I'm denying how good and decent these 1 million people are? For some reason, it seems like they haven't not read it, they haven't taken seriously, or they misunderstand it. For whatever reason, even though this book is teaching you garbage, a garbage moral system, these people are not following. So my judgment when I say Islam is garbage, is violent, is anti-human, I'm not judging every single individual Muslim. All I'm judging is I'm reading the Quran and I'm reading the Hadith and I'm basically understanding it not just as it seems to. I'm not just judging it based on what it seems to be saying. I'm judging it based on 1400 years of Islamic scholarships, people who have Arabic was their native tongue, and they spent their entire life basically interpreting the Quran and the Hadith. For about 1400 years, the interpretation that seems to be the direct message of the Quran has been consistent. With regards to this is a religion that teaches you that you can't rape children, that you can capture women in war as sex slaves, right? That you should be killing dogs if they're black, and dogs are impure, and you should be away from. You should stay away from them. That you should be beating up your wife if she's not being obedient to you. If you fear disobedience from her, as long as you try two other steps, like these are not. If you read the Quran and Hadith, there is no interpretation that could save this. And even if you think there is, then why is it that people who spoke Arabic and it was their job to interpret the Quran and Hadith, this was the consistent interpretation of these books for 1400 years? And only now in modern times, where the Western moral system has now dominated the planet, only now do we come up with new interpretation that seems to suggest that maybe these verses meant something else. So when I'm judging Islam, I'm not judging people, I'm judging the books, I'm judging the source material. That's what I'm doing. This is what I would explain to people, and I would try to separate this. And I also suggest that, to me, Muslims are the victims of Islam. So I don't hate Muslims, I consider them as victims. So how could if I hate cancer, nobody will come and tell me like, what the hell, Armin? My friend is is my friend is a cancer patient. What do you have against my friend? Like, what the hell? What are you talking about? Like, obviously, hating cancer is not the same as hating the cancer patient. So for us, if we're anti-Islam, well, Muslims are the victims of Islam. So that does not translate to hating Muslims. This is another example that I would use. So I don't know if any of that is any good, Shona. What do you think?
I mean, some of it is step one is easy because I've been very, very friendly with her friend who's Muslim, and I've,
Right,
said positive things. So that's not that step one's complete.
right,
So that's good. I'm thinking more in I guess what I didn't kind of define well enough because I was trying to set up this example is in a mass media environment where people like my mother are going to be getting feedback. If all I have from that experience is my friend, my neighbor, my colleague, whatever, is this really kind, sweet, generous person, then I might feel instinctually protective. And I say this especially as somebody because I'm Mormon. There is, and she's also Mormon, there's going to be an instinct to protect religious minorities, whether or not that's rational. That's going to be the baseline instinct.
right.
So that is another factor
So
in all of that.
so I don't know if this helps, but by trying to protect Muslims from anti-Islamic views, we're actually hurting them, right?
I agree.
So yes, because the level of, you know, there's something called desensitization, and we're basically treating them like, I think this is what I would say. I think like it's insulting to Muslims to try to protect them from hearing opposing views, right? It's you basically treating them as these little snowflakes who can't handle disagreement. And I think that's insulting to Muslims, right? And I feel like I would say, like, wow, I have actually more respect for Muslims than you, because I actually think that Muslims could handle somebody disagreeing with their religion. Are you telling me, like, are you being protective? Like, do you really think that Muslims are that pathetically weak that we need to basically like hold their ears for them to all of a sudden not hear anybody having a view against Islam? Like, why don't we do that with other people? We don't do that with Christians and Jews. Like, we do that with Islam.
Because for
That has
religious
worked with
people,
Muslims. No, I have talked to Muslims, and Muslims were convinced by them. When I tell a Muslim that I think that they're tough enough, they have a thick enough skin to be able to handle my disagreements. More Muslims have been receptive of my disagreements with Islam by telling them that. So
okay,
this has worked with Muslims for me.
okay,
Okay, Shauna, can I come in? I'm sorry. Can I come into this?
Just one second, Shay. Like this shows, like when I say that to a Muslim, they feel like, well, if they're sensitive, like if they don't listen, if they are not tolerant, they're basically demonstrating weakness, right? So it's a compliment, but it's also a challenge. When you frame it like that, then you would basically make them want to prove that, yeah, okay, I can accept criticism. So it comes off as a challenge and a compliment at the same time.
okay.
But yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But
I that does help a lot. I need to think about a little bit more how I need to formulate where the triggers are, but I need to think about
mm,
that. So we'll do that in a different day. But I'm happy to hear his response.
yeah, keep it short, Shy, if you can, please.
Okay, very short. Every religion has its beautiful parts and it's got its baggage. Okay, so even if you look at your own religion, let's say Mormonism, you can challenge Christians that are not Mormon.
What's the beautiful parts of Islam? Educate me.
Some religions have way more baggage than others, but when I say
Okay.
that Judaism has beautiful parts to it and baggage, I'm not making it new to anybody. I mean, Judaism has beautiful parts to it and baggage. Christianity, if you talk about, the in the Middle Ages when they did the Crusades, they killed Jews on the way to trying to fight the Muslims, or uh, I'm sorry, I'm getting it's just an example, right? In my opinion, personally, when the Christians send crusades, maybe they had a good idea, but on the way they found Jewish community that they slaughtered also. So there's a lot of baggage to the religions, and to Judaism too. There's a lot of baggage. There's some criticism I can tell you about Judaism too, even though I'm Jewish and I love Judaism too. But and if you look at the discussion, the interreligious discussions, I think the main thing to say is this: when a religion tries to force itself on others, that's when it crosses a red line. And Islam is trying to force itself on others way more than other religions.
Even if a religion does not try to force its way on other people, if it's giving you bad advice for life, even without force, that's harmful. Okay, if it said like, hey, this is just a suggestion, you could follow this, and it becomes very popular and it's not forcing its way on everyone, if those suggestions are bad suggestions, that is still harmful.
Sure, but I have the will to say no. But if somebody forces it on me, that's a whole other ballgame.
Yeah, but it makes sense for people to go out and try to fight that religion for, because you might have the will and many other people might become convinced by it, right?
I agree. I mean, there's levels to this.
Yeah, I could be like, hey, this cures cancer, and it could have poison in it. I like, is this fine? Because I'm not forcing it on anybody. I'm just like, hey, you could drink it and you could not drink it. It cures cancer, but it's poison. Like, I'm gonna try to stop that person, even if it's not forcing anybody. Going around and telling this cures cancer while it has poison in it, I'm gonna go try to stop that person.
Okay, one short analogy. You can be a scammy marketer, scamming people out of their money. That's one level. Or you can be a criminal shooting people on the streets. That's another level. I agree
You should
both
stop
are
all
wrong.
of these people. That's
Both.
what I'm saying. All right.
I like that what we really, the takeaway here is that the Crusades had a lot of good parts about them and a little bit of baggage.
Actually,
Okay.
Crusades had, but actually, BT, I know you're joking, but the Crusades were justified, in my opinion.
Oh,
I
I'm
agree
not
with that.
disagreeing. I was just using the
Yeah.
term